Today is Budgeting 101, Building a Solid Financial Future with Debra Jacobs. It is our third and final presentation of our three-part financial webinar series. I am Cynthia Cross. I'm HFA's Services Manager, and we'll just do a quick introduction to HFA, the program that brought us this webinar, and then introduce our incredible speaker and let her take over with her very valuable presentation. So HFA is a national nonprofit organization that was founded in 1994. We assist, educate, and advocate for the bleeding disorders community. This presentation is brought to you by HFA's Helping Forward program, where we work to assist families transitioning from financial crisis to financial stability. The Helping Forward program also provides a job readiness grant, which provides up to $1,000 towards a course, training program, or certification that can help adults with bleeding disorders or carriers gain a promotion, sustainable employment, or help those looking to make extra income on the side. College courses are considered for this grant, and applications are currently open and processed as soon as they are received. And now to introduce our speaker, Debra Jacobs is the founder of Money Smart for Life, a financial coaching business helping people overcome shame, fear, and overwhelm around money and take action to master their personal finances. She has developed financial literacy curricula, taught classes to teens and adults, presented financial wellness workshops around the country, and worked with many clients to achieve positive, measurable results. Those results include, among others, moving beyond limiting money mindsets, becoming intentional with values-based budgeting, making and carrying out savings and debt pay down plans, and achieving financial goals. Thank you, and I will pass it on to Debra.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here for the third and final financial wellness presentation. If you attended either of the previous two, then you've met me, but I think I'll just do a real brief intro. Let me just share my screen. Whoops, no, this one. Here we go. So we're going to talk about budgeting today, everybody's favorite topic, right? But trust me, it's not that bad. So I'm a money coach, a financial coach. I owned a preschool for many years, single mom. And during the time my kids were growing up, I had a ton of excuses about money. I was afraid of it. I had room in my mind for just my kids and my business. I let things pile up and, I didn't do the things that I should have done. So when my kids got a little older, a little space opened up in my life, and I started to see that it was really time. I had to take some action. I had to learn about money. So I kind of held my nose and jumped in and read every book and listened to every podcast and started transforming my own life. And I was as surprised as anybody that I loved it so much that this is really what I wanted to do, is to help people transform their lives with money. So that's what I've been doing ever since I got my AFC, which is Accredited Financial Counselor certification, and have been going strong with financial coaching ever since. So let's talk budgeting. The first thing that most people don't think about when they think about budgeting is why. Why should I budget? Of course, you want to budget to have enough money to make ends meet. But beyond that, why are we budgeting? Why are we doing all these things to make ourselves financially well? The first step in figuring that out is figuring out what's important to you. What is the most important thing to you? What do you want out of life? Not what your parents want for you necessarily. It could be the same, but it's not necessarily the same. Not what your adult children think you should want as you move towards retirement. Not what all your friends want. Not what society wants of you, but what do you really want? And that can be hard to figure out. But once you do the work of figuring that out, then the next step is trying to make your money flow towards the life that you want. And that's what I like to call values-based spending. We talked about this in a prior webinar, but it's so important that I wanted to just review it a little bit. And that just means we look at everything we're spending money on, and we ask ourselves questions about each thing. Is this helping me move towards my goals? Is this helping me to get what I want out of life, or is it getting in my way? And for those things that you value highly, those expenses that are helping you move towards what you want, spend on them or save for them, but slash spending on everything else. So we also talked about this in a prior webinar, but it's really important. So I wanted to do it again. And that is, what are the 3 most important practices for building wealth? One is simple, but not easy to do. And that is spend less than you make. I mean, you just can't get ahead if you're spending as much or more than you're bringing in every month. Now, if you're on SSI or your income is really limited, this can be hard, and you might need to get some help with it. If you're making enough so that you can put food on the table and you can keep a roof over your head, and you can even like just a little bit more to save, then you can look at how you're spending and make whatever changes you have to actually have a little bit of a cushion so you can put some money aside. So spending less than you make is the number 1 principle of building wealth. Number 2 is a concept called pay yourself first. And this means that most people look at all their expenses, everything they spend, and then if there's anything left over at the end of the month, that's what they save. And guess what? At the end of the month, there's often nothing left over. So you don't say, that's what I did for a long time. But if we flip that, and anytime money comes in, we just pretend in our head that a little bit less money came in than actually came in. And we take that money, even if it's $10, even if it's a very small amount, and we save it, then we're making progress. So pay yourself first, figure out what percentage of anything that comes in you're going to take, or what dollar amount. Anytime income hits your account, take a little bit out and put it into a savings account first. And then the 3rd principle is invest early and often. And that's for another webinar, but it's important. If you have that little bit of extra money and you have a little bit of an emergency fund and you've got a little extra to invest, then that's the way to build wealth for the long term. I'm not talking day trading. I'm not talking, buying a stock and thinking next week you're going to make it big, but keeping it in the market for 30 years, for a long time, and it builds wealth over time. Even though the market goes up and down, it's historically trended up. Okay, let's get into the topic at hand, which is budgeting. And so the question I have for you, and feel free to write in the chat or raise your hand or whatever, have you tried to budget, and has it been hard to stick to a budget? What has been difficult about sticking to a budget? Anybody? Anybody ever had some trouble budgeting? All right. Well, a lot of people often have trouble sticking to a budget. They might make this beautiful budget. Oh, it looks like there are a couple of things in the chat. Random reasons make it hard. Yeah. Getting to the end of the budget, but still needing to buy stuff, unexpected life events, discipline, all of those are things that make it hard to stick to a budget. So let's look at some. Number 1, sometimes people tell me it's too complicated. I can't budget. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can make it really easy. And I'll show you a way to do that. I hate math. Well, do you have a phone? Yeah, here it is. Do you have a phone? If you have a phone, you have a calculator. It's really simple. It's just simple addition and subtraction. You don't need to know calculus to do a budget. It can be again really simple. This was one that some people said in the chat. Unexpected expenses always get in my way. The car needs brakes, or the hot water heater needs to be replaced, or something comes up that I wasn't expecting. And I'm going to show you how to deal with that. I'm a freelancer and my income varies from month to month. So it's really hard to budget because I don't know what's coming in every month. It's a good one. Does make it more difficult, a little more challenging. But again, there's a way to deal with that that's really not that complicated. It feels too restrictive. Anybody felt that before? If I'm on a budget, then I can't do what I want to do. And I hear this a lot from people. Oh, I don't want to be a penny pincher. But a budget can actually free you. It doesn't have to feel restrictive. And again, I'll show you a way to make it feel a little bit less restrictive. It can free you to reach your goals. It's like a roadmap. It can help you get there. I have ADHD. That's another thing I hear a lot. How can I stick to a budget? And again, if you put some systems, simple systems into place that provide some structure, it can actually really help you. You don't have to, focus on it. You don't have to think about it all the time. It's okay if you get distracted. If you have that system in place, it will make your life easier. So what I'm saying is there's really no excuse. You can budget. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between tracking money and budgeting, which is making a spending plan. So tracking is looking backwards. We look back at the last 2-3 months of credit card statements, of bank statements, to figure out the answer to that perennial question, where's my money going? And then you can make different categories. Oh, that's how much I'm spending for groceries. Oh, that's how much I'm spending on my hobby. Oh, that's how much I'm spending for gasoline or, in my car or this or that. So tracking can be very useful going backwards, and it can be useful going forwards if you're the kind of person who would benefit from tracking. But it's especially useful when you're just starting to make your budget. If you have no idea where your money's going, then you gather your information and you figure out, oh, the last 3 months, average it all together, add it up, divide by 3. And, oh, I'm spending over $1,000 a month for groceries. Maybe there's something I can do there. Okay. Making a spending plan is looking forward rather than backwards. It's saying, how do I want to live? How much do I want to spend in each category? And creating that forward-looking thinking so that you can look, you can say, oh, I said I'm only going to spend $600 this month for groceries, and I have 1 week left and I've already spent $525. So I only have $75 left. But by setting that number, that $700 forward, you're setting a goal. You know what you're reaching for. So that's the difference between tracking and budgeting, making a spending plan. Okay, so let's talk about the easy way of budgeting. One of those objections was, it's too complicated. I'll never be able to stick to it because it's too complicated. There is an easy way. And the easy way, again, is pay yourself first. So anytime money comes in, make sure even a little bit of it gets saved. And then forget about it. Forget about the rest. Just spend the rest. Cover your expenses, and whatever is left over, you can use for everything else. So you don't have to bother tracking every little expense. As long as you know you're saving money, anytime money comes in, you're doing well. But what are some of the pitfalls of this? Anybody have any ideas of when this way of just paying yourself first and then not worrying about the rest might not work so well? Any ideas about that? Okay. Well, one way time that it may not work so well is if you spend more than the amount that's left over after you save. So if you're not that disciplined and let's say you get $1,000, you save 100 of it, but you don't spend $900, you spend $1,000, then you're getting yourself into trouble. This system won't work for you. You have to be able to spend less than or the amount that's left over after you save. Okay, it won't work if you're not disciplined about credit card use or about pulling from your savings account when you want to buy something. So if you see that, $175 sweater or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, I really want that, and you do this easy way where you've already saved money, but this is going to lead you to overspending. It's going to lead you to debt if you're not disciplined about credit card use. And it might not work if you want to spend according to your values and goals, because again, you don't really know what you're spending on. You're just spending. So you're not spending intentionally. So if any other budget system just won't work for you, do the easy way. But just be aware that there are pitfalls to it, and that it won't work in every case. And it won't necessarily lead you to intentional spending, to spending on in a way that is according to your values and goals. It also doesn't give you a clear idea of where and how you're spending your money. So you're not being intentional or proactive. And medical spending, I'm looking at the chat, can also be a challenge. How do you cope with that? Well, we'll talk about that. We can make a budget category for that. And also, if you have debts you want paid off, that's something we'll also talk about. And partners see money differently. That is a relationship issue. So that's something that you really have to sit down and talk with your partner about, his or her values and goals, your values and goals, and your shared values and goals, and set up your money life in a way that honors all of those. Okay, but that's actually also a webinar for another time, is talking about relationships and money. Okay, so let's talk about a budgeting system that I really like and has worked well for a lot of my clients. And I call this the bucket budget. And they're essential elements of any useful spending plan. So there are 4 basic budgets: savings and investments, fixed expenses, day-to-day expenses, and sinking funds. And we'll talk about each one of these. So savings and investments, simply pay yourself first. It's flipping that script of, oh, I'll save whatever's left over at the end. Instead, you make a category in your budget right up at the top called savings or investments, and you determine how much you're going to save and invest every month. Again, if it's really tight, $5, whatever it may be. But get in that habit of small to larger amounts, if you have it, of putting aside savings and investments. So that's your first category in your budget, actually. That's money going out. It's not going out the door totally. It's going to you, but into a different account, into a savings account. But it's coming out of the amount of money that you have to spend every month. All right. The next category is called fixed expenses. And these are expenses that you're going to pay every single month. And the amount of these expenses stays the same from month to month. So, ideas about what some of these may be? Any ideas about fixed expenses?
We've got mortgage, electric, gas.
Yes. Now, electric and gas will change, but I like to put them in fixed expenses because you're going to be paying them every month. Insurance, cell phone, car payment, internet, all really good ideas. Absolutely. These are all fixed expenses. Rent, mortgage, car payment, internet, cell phone, all the things you said. Monthly insurance payments. Some people pay insurance quarterly or annually, but if you pay it every month, it goes in this category. Subscriptions. Do you know what is coming out of your accounts for subscriptions? Do you have Hulu and Netflix and Disney Plus and the New York Times and the gym and all of those things that come out of your account every month for subscriptions, whatever those are fixed expenses because they're being paid every month. So these expenses you can't do much about. I mean, you can look at them and maybe every 4 to 6 months and say, is there any way I can save on some of these? You might be able to get cheaper cell phone service, or you might be able to call your internet company and see if you can reduce the amount of internet. You might be able to let go of some subscriptions you're not using a lot. So there are ways of reducing these, but these are generally fixed. So I always say, put them on auto pay so you don't have to think about them. Just put them on auto pay. Set if we'll talk about what if I don't have enough money in my account. We're going to save that for later, but fixed expenses really on auto pay will make your life so easy. So these expenses, that money comes into your account, these go out every month. All right, so that's bucket number 2. Oh, student loan and other debt payments, right? Okay. Day-to-day spending is amounts that you spend every month, but the amounts go up and down. They're not things that are a fixed amount that you can just put on auto pay. So ideas for what some of these expenses might be. Let's see. Groceries, gas, yep. Food for sure. Clothes are actually going to go in a different category, unless you buy clothes every single month. If you buy clothes every single month and you know every single month you're going to spend money on clothes, then it goes in this category. But if you buy clothes maybe every 3 months, we're going to put that in a different category. Eating out for sure. Okay. Entertainment, bowling, golf, movies, all of those. Okay, so groceries, restaurants, entertainment, kids' activities, kids' supplies, pet food, pet care, not the vet, because that's not something you're going to spend every single month, but the dog food and the treats and things like that, the litter for the cat, gasoline, home supplies, toilet paper, paper towels, things that you know you're going to be buying every month, and hobby supplies if you buy them every month. So this category is the one to watch. Often what I recommend for people after they've tracked their spending for the last 2 or 3 months is to set goals for each of these. Wow, I'm spending too much going out to eat. I can't believe we spent, $850 last month on restaurants or whatever it may be. And you want to cut back on that. Set some goals that are realistic, that you're not going to feel deprived, you're not going to feel too restricted, but you think you can do, but that are, an aspirational goal for you. And often I recommend people open a separate account. So figure out what your goals are for all of your day-to-day spending amounts for the month, add them up, and whatever that bottom line number is, put it into a separate checking account. So to track it, all you have to do is get on your phone, open up to your bank, and look and see what's the bottom line in that account. You don't have to weed through the rent payment and the this payment and the that. You just look at these things, and if you have a week left in the month and you're very close to your total amount of these categories, it's time to pull back. If you have more than you thought, you go, oh, we can go out to eat, or we can do this or that. So it just makes it easy to track, to look at where you are. This is where a lot of people get into some trouble, because it's so easy to get takeout instead of cooking something, or, oh, we're going to spend, I really want those things for my hobby, or, whatever it is. So this is an area to look at, and it's easy to look at it if it's separate. Money comes into your account, your fixed expenses go out automatically, your total amount for day-to-day spending goes into a different account, and all you have to do is watch that account. That account is only used for these day-to-day spending categories. Another way to make sure you're staying within your goals for day-to-day spending is something called the envelope system. You may have seen your grandmother do this, where there's money for groceries and she puts the cash. This month we're spending $100 for groceries, and we'll put the cash in the envelope, and when the $100 is gone, that's it. No more money. We better look and see what's in the kitchen, because no more money for groceries this month. So you don't have to do it that way. You can do it digitally. You can set up these categories on a spreadsheet or in a budgeting app and look at that money going down and down and down and see what you have left in each category. So it's similar to doing, and you can, if cash works for you, by all means, do the envelope system, the physical envelope system, but doing it digitally will work also. Okay, let's talk about sinking funds. A lot of people have never heard this term before, sinking funds. So what this means are things like clothes. Again, unless you spend money every single month on clothes. But if you go clothes shopping every 3 months, every 4 months, these are expenses that are coming up over the course of the year, or that you think might come up over the course of the year. But often you don't put it in your budget and you get tripped up and have to go to the credit card. Remember, we talked about the car repair or the unexpected hot water heater breaking down. We don't have to have those as unexpected costs. We can expect them. We know these things are going to come up. We know expected things are going to come up, and we know unexpected things are going to come up. So let's put aside some money every month for them. What might some of these things be? Ideas of what sinking funds might be in the sinking funds account? Gifts, absolutely. Yep. Anybody else have an idea of what might be in the sinking fund account? Oh, nail and hair appointments, house and car repairs, holiday, and of course, medical. Now, some of you may be spending money monthly on medical bills, and that might be in your day-to-day spending account. But if you're not spending money monthly, but medical expenses are coming up, by all means, it should be in the sinking funds. So what else might there be? If you have an animal, a visit to the vet. Unless the animal gets sick, that's going to happen once a year, and you're going to have to pay for the shots and medications and things like that, but you're not paying it every month. Let's put some money aside for it so it's there when you need it. Travel, if you travel, birthday and holiday gifts, car maintenance and repair. So those are just a few, and medical, of course, are just a few. So what I like to have people do is even look at their calendars for the year and think of what's coming up. Oh, I'm going to be a bridesmaid in July. What's that going to cost? And let's figure out what it's going to cost for the dress, what it's going to cost for travel, what it's going to cost to throw a bachelorette party, all those costs. And then how many months do we have until then? Let's just say we have 10 months till then. Let's just say. We're going to take that total number, we're going to divide it by 10, and every month we're going to put aside 1/10 of the total amount. And guess what? When July comes around, you just pull it out of that account. You've got it. It's there. Now, some things we know about and some things we don't know about. So we know we're going to take a trip and how much that's going to cost. We can have a good idea of what we're going to spend for gifts. We pretty much know what we're going to spend for the vet, but we have no idea what we're going to spend for car maintenance. Guess make an educated guess and decide what you want to put aside every month. And that way, you don't have to turn to the credit cards. You don't even have to pull from your other savings if you have it. You'll have the money there. Now, if your income is very limited, this is super hard to do. I acknowledge that and recognize that. If you're going paycheck to paycheck just to put food on the table, it's super hard to put money aside for holiday gifts. And then you end up turning to the credit cards and you get yourself into debt. But maybe you can talk to your family and say, I'm really trying to be good with money. It's limited. Can we do, homemade gifts this year, or write cards instead of give gifts, or whatever it may be, to get those numbers down. So, sinking funds. Now, debt payoff, I think we talked about, somebody asked about debt payoff, and I would put debt payoff in either its own category or in your fixed expenses. So you know how much every month you're putting towards the debt to get that debt paid off. Okay. Another way to budget is a calendar-based budget. So people might say, yeah, Deb, that's all well and good to do my goals for what I want to spend for the month and to, figure that all out the way you showed it with the day-to-day spending and the sinking funds. But I get paid twice a month, and by the end of the week before my paycheck, I'm really struggling. So what do I do? So calendar-based budgeting is a good way to lay it all out visually. And then what you can do is you can call up some of the companies. So let's say that looking at this, let's see that let's say the car payment is due on the 9th, right? But in this example, the person isn't struggling to make that car payment. But let's say that on the 8th, you're running out of money because you don't get paid until the 16th, and it's really tight here. So you might, let's say a lot of your expenses are in these 2 weeks, you could call up the companies and say, can I change my payment date from the 9th to the 23rd? So if you're getting paid twice a month and you're finding that most of your bills come within one pay period, and that's really making you struggle, you can call up the companies and ask them to change the dates. So the way calendar-based budgeting works is that you just sit down first and you write out on a calendar. You could do it handwritten, or you can use a handy dandy little template like this. If you want this template, let me know. I'm happy to send it to you. So you would write out what's coming in. You can see here whatever's coming in income is in green, and what's going out is in black. And here is the balance as of this day in your checking account. And then this number, this $900, if you take the $3,100 that's coming in and you subtract the $2,200, it's $900 that's coming out of this $2,450, or that's being added to, I'm sorry, because you're getting paid. So now you add this, and now you have a balance of $3,350. So let's say I have $200 automatically going into my savings, and I'm making a sinking fund transfer of $850. So I'm taking that out of $1,050. Now my balance is $2,300. Now I buy groceries for $175. So now my balance is $2,125. And you can do this on a calendar. Again, really all you need is pencil and paper. But if you want to do it online, you can do that too. So that's just another way to budget. Okay, ways to budget with variable income. I'm a freelancer. Some months I do really well. Some months I get next to nothing. Yikes. And then I'm really struggling and I'm turning to the credit cards. What do I do? So the first thing to do is to figure out all of your monthly expenses, your fixed expenses, your debt payments, your day-to-day expenses, and your sinking fund amount for the month. So once you know that number, that's your total expense for the month. Every month where income is higher than your expenses, you don't spend that gap. You put it in a savings account and you just spend what you need for expenses. Then on the months where there's a dip and you're not bringing in any money that month, you pull the money out of that savings account to make up for your deficit. It's a way to even out your income. So some months you have rags and some months you have riches. But if you know what your expenses are, you don't have to feel that bump every time. You can even it out. All right. Ways to sort of reset. Let's say you've been overspending or you really want to start budgeting. What are some things that you can do? First of all, you can evaluate your needs versus your wants. Now, there are certain things we all want, and you really should put in your budget a few wants. Otherwise, you're going to feel restricted. You're going to feel like life isn't good. So make sure you have a few wants in there, but evaluate what's a need and what's a want. For a very short time, you can eliminate all discretionary spending and figure out what you really miss. Ask yourself these 3 questions. These questions are really important. Number 1, does this expense bring me closer to my goals or push me further away from reaching my goals? Number 2, does this expense add value to my life? Sort of the Marie Kondo thing. Does it bring me joy? Or do I really need it? Medical expenses you really need, right? They may not bring you joy, but you really need them. And number 3, if yes to number 2, is there any way I can get the same value for less? So with a little ingenuity, calling up companies, asking for discounts, buying things used, there are any number of ways that you can get that same sense of joy, that same value for less money. Some people like to have something called a no spend month, where they don't buy anything new that month. And then, you see what you can live without and what seems easy and what seems hard about a no spend month. And some people might have a no spend week, including groceries. So that means they look in their cabinet, they pull out the, can of garbanzo beans and the rice and, whatever for that week, to use up everything that's there and just not spend money for that week. All right, some ideas for cutting expenses. Of course, we talked about subscriptions. Do you really need Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, on and on and on? What are you really using? What brings you joy? Get rid of the rest. That's sort of low-hanging fruit. That's an easy way to save some money. Cell phone service. So there are things called MVNOs. Most of the cell phone providers, the big guys, AT&T and T-Mobile, they have to dig and put the cables down. They have to maintain the cables. That's expensive, and they pass those costs on to the customer. But there are companies like Mint Mobile, and there are others that don't have to do that. They rent the network from the big guys. So it's the same service. You're not getting less value. You're getting the same value, but they pass the savings on to customers. And I know people who are spending like $25, $30 a month for cell phone service. So worth looking into. Meal planning, reducing waste, shopping at discount grocery stores, all ways to reduce money. And I always like to, when I'm cooking, to double what I'm cooking and freeze. That way, when I feel that urge, I'm too tired after a day at work, and I feel that urge to call up takeout and spend $40, instead I can just shop in my freezer, throw something in the microwave, and there's dinner. asking for discounts and negotiating. Always ask for a discount. Buying used, and gifts. You can talk to your family about, as I said, about let's just do really little gifts for the kids this year and no gifts for the adults. I mean, that's a way to save. I'm happy to bake some cookies or whatever. You have to decide what's most important for you. All right. Ideas for resisting spending temptations. You go into the store, you see that thing you really want. How do you resist it? Well, this term, opportunity cost, is a really important concept. And that just means anytime you spend money, you're losing out on another opportunity. So that opportunity could be a long-term opportunity or a short-term opportunity. So every time you spend money, you could be investing that money. And over the long term, you could be making a lot of money on it. Or if you're spending money, your opportunity cost may be that you don't get to buy the car you want. Maybe you need a less expensive car because you're spending it on other things. If you're buying an expensive car, that's an opportunity cost. That money could be going somewhere else. So it's fine to spend money. You just have to figure out what's more important, what you're buying now or what you could buy in the future with this money. So another idea is to take a picture of your goal to your debit or your credit card. So maybe you want to travel. So you get a picture of like a palm tree on a beach, little one, and you cut it out and you tape it right to the front of your credit card. And anytime you pull it out of your wallet, either to spend online or to spend in a store, you look at that picture and you say, should I really buy this? Opportunity cost. If I buy this, it's going to take me longer to save up the money for that trip. So that's one idea for resisting temptations. Another thing a lot of people do is they make a waiting period rule before buying anything. So they might say, any expenditure over $100, I'm going to wait 3 days before I buy it. Or I'm going to wait a week before I buy it. If I still want it as much after 3 days or after a week, then I'll buy it. But maybe after 3 days or a week, your desire for it has fizzled and you don't want it quite as much. And always, always ask, can I find something just as good for less? Okay, so it doesn't matter how you do it, just do it. You can make a spreadsheet in Excel. You can use an app like YNAB, which means you need a budget, or Tiller, which is what I personally use and I use with a lot of my clients. It's a spreadsheet-based budgeting app. Mint, actually, I have to take Mint off of this because Intuit is closing down Mint in January. So probably not a good idea to get started with Mint now. Personal Capital or others, or just do it on pen and paper. Doesn't really matter how you do it, just do it. Okay, that's it. Questions?
We had a couple come up while others get it into the Q&A box. So one was medical spending can also be a challenge. How do you cope with that in budgeting?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. And, if you've exhausted all avenues for help, I know HFA can connect you with all sorts of resources to help you with that. You can also call the provider or the hospital and ask for an itemized budget. Anytime you're in the hospital, you should always get an itemized budget of everything to make sure they're not charging you, $550 for a Band-Aid. And then you can dispute some of those costs. And you can also call the hospital and make a payment plan and tell them, I can't pay this all right now, but always call them to make a plan. But in a budget, you want to put medical costs in your sinking funds so that, assuming you have the money to put aside every month, you have a category for medical expenses. You figure out what you think you might spend, on a monthly basis. You're not going to spend it every month, but if you figure out for a year what you might spend and divide by 12, put that amount aside, and then you'll at least have some money saved up when one of those expenses comes up.
Another one we had for the digital envelope system. Are there any apps that can be used that will completely stop the spending when your limit is reached?
Good question. The only one that I know of is called Cube. I forget, it starts with a Q. I think it's QUBE. I could be wrong. And what Cube is it actually, it's like a bank account. In it, I think, issues you a debit card, and you can set up all of your categories, and it will notify you, if not stop you. And certainly you can't spend more than you've deposited into it. So it's sort of like a combination between a bank account and a budgeting app.
So, and then we got, if you pay yourself first, but then still have money left over at the end of the month, what would you recommend doing with the leftovers? Treat yourself or put it towards savings?
Excellent question. I always think it's a good idea to treat yourself, but not with all of it. I would take a little bit and go have fun, have a nice dinner somewhere. But anything above a certain amount of money, let's say, $80 to go to a restaurant or something, anything over that, I would definitely save it. But again, what's your why? What are you saving for? You can put it into just a general savings account. You can put it into your emergency fund. If those are funded, and we generally say for an emergency fund that you want to have maybe 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. Once that's done, if your debt's paid, if you have debt, you want to throw it at debt. If you don't have debt, what are you saving for? Are you saving for a trip? Are you saving for a new car? Or you say whatever you're saving for, I would put money into a dedicated account for that reason.
And then, do patients have the right to dispute the $20 Tylenols given in the hospital and things like that? And is it worth the time?
Patients always have the right to dispute anything. So $20 Tylenols, I don't know if I would dispute that. I would certainly dispute a $350 Tylenol, which is not unheard of. So I would absolutely get an itemized bill and see what they're charging you for. And you can certainly dispute those. $20 Tylenol, I mean, we know that's outrageous, but I don't know if that's actually worth it. Anything else?
It looks like that's all the questions we have right now. And I love that you put your email in there. I know you're always open to people reaching out and asking questions to you. They can also reach out to the Helping Hands team. We are more than happy to answer questions that we can. I know Debra mentioned resources we can provide. We can also reach out to Debra and get answers to those questions if they're a little outside of our realm with the financial coaching and education. We really appreciate you, Debra, for doing these 3 series. I know I learned a lot and I've heard a lot of really great things. So I greatly appreciate you for that. And we thank everyone for joining us tonight. We know it's late and there are other things you could do with your time. So we greatly appreciate you using that time to spend time with us. And I hope everyone has a great night.
It's been a pleasure. And I'm happy to meet with this group or any HFA group at any time. Always have met great people. So thank you so much. And if there's any way I can help, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.